The Scrolls of Hayah, the Fragment of the Dome, Visions of the Deceased Beings, and the Experimental Lands. Chapter 6. The Fragment of the Dome. After the previous conversation, we took a brief pause. While it would have been more pleasant to share a drink, the truth was that the old barn where we had decided to meet was utterly empty. In some way, we tried to leave the depth of everything behind by talking about trivial matters, preparing ourselves for what was to come, something that would be key to understanding much more.
YouTube channel Nos Confunden.
Joel leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply, knowing that what he was about to share would be even harder to digest than everything before. The tension wrapped around us again as the smoke from his cigarette struggled to escape through the crack in the window. "Everything changed that last night at sea," he began, his voice faltering. "The captain called me to his cabin. He was a reserved man, rarely sharing his thoughts. But that night was different. When I entered, I found him sitting at his desk, weighed down by something, with several maps and documents spread out before him. His expression was somber, and his hands trembled slightly. It scared me to see him like that, so I asked if he was all right." Joel paused, cigarette in hand, exhaling before fixing his gaze on me. Then he delved back into his account. "Sit down," Charlie said to me, and I obeyed. I wasn't sure what he wanted to tell me, but what I saw on his desk left me breathless. There were maps I'd never seen before, Claudio. Maps showing things that shouldn't exist.
Nos Confunden.
Charlie was sharing this with me because of the visions he had experienced. "What kind of maps?" I asked, trying not to sound overly eager. Joel looked up at me, his dark eyes serious. "They were maps of islands and territories that don't appear in any official records. I don't know where he got them, but they showed a network of land south of our coasts, between what we know as Tierra del Fuego and the Antarctic Peninsula, along with tunnels beneath the land. The strangest part wasn't just the islands themselves. They were marked with detailed annotations, names in languages I didn't recognize, and symbols that seemed to indicate human activity, or perhaps something else."
Nos Confunden.
Honestly, I don't know, because he never explained it in detail. And that night, I wasn't in the right state of mind to ask more questions. The captain pointed to one of the islands, circled in red, with notes in a language I couldn't decipher. "This," he said, "is the reason we're here." Then he looked up and told me, "What you saw with that dark vessel may be closely connected to this. There are things neither you nor I should know, but there's no turning back now, and I believe you deserve to understand."
Nos Confunden.
I leaned forward in my chair, feeling as though every word Joel spoke pulled me deeper into the storm, both outside, where the rain began seeping through the old metal roof, and within my own thoughts.
Nos Confunden.
We talked again about those hidden islands where experiments are conducted, places absent from conventional maps. Joel told me that, as we had discussed earlier, the captain described that location as an experimental hell, used by forces operating beyond any government's reach. These forces conduct experiments that not only defy ethics, but also challenge the fabric of reality itself. We also revisited the subject of the false Patagones, and then he continued.
Nos Confunden.
He spoke to me about the visions, Claudio. About how in those islands, just like in the line of absolute zero, people experience fragments of something not of this world. But unlike the line, the visions on these islands don't predict the future. They are fragments of the past. Entire lives and stories we don't know, events absent from any history book. Could all this be related to the visions of burning people that the entire crew experienced?
Nos confunden.
The captain then hurried to show me a folder he had on his desk. It was older than any document I'd ever seen, and the cover simply read, Operation Rescue 2. When he opened it, I saw photographs and descriptions of an object recovered near an Antarctic base in the 1950s, an object that has never been publicly disclosed. According to the documents, this piece was a fragment of the invisible dome projector, or at least that's what the report suggested, though they referred to it differently. Incident at Dome C, followed by an identifying number.
Nos confunden.
A fragment of the dome? I asked, unable to conceal my astonishment. Yes, Claudio, exactly that. He told me the piece still exhibited active projection patterns and strange simulations, almost as if it were alive. It even emitted different color tones. The scientists studying it couldn't identify its composition, but knew it was neither natural nor human-made. After its recovery, a massive earthquake shook the area where it had been found. The situation was so severe that some considered returning the fragment, but the plan was ultimately cancelled for reasons never clarified. It was then that the captain began to understand that what we see as the sky is far more than what we've been told. This happened over a decade before the high-altitude nuclear tests were conducted. Silence filled the room once more as Joel took a sip of water and stubbed out his nearly finished cigarette, clearly affected by the memories. At that moment, I didn't want to interrupt this fascinating part of the story, but I had questions about the mystery surrounding the fragment. I found it particularly intriguing that a piece of the dome could have fallen. Perhaps it wasn't the dome itself, but rather part of a projection added later by the custodians. I doubted the dome itself could break, let alone fall, yet the idea was as unsettling as it was captivating. The captain warned me to keep silent about all of this, saying that I already knew more than someone like me should. But he also told me I was now part of something larger, and there was no turning back. That map and that document, combined with the dreams, changed my life completely. They marked the beginning of a chain of events that led me here, to you. And now, it's your turn to decide what to do with all this information. I refrained from asking more about the document detailing the dome fragment's recovery. As I mentioned, at the time, my mind was still somewhat foggy and not fully recovered. I could only listen in awe, unable to delve deeper into the subject at that moment. Yet, one thing was certain. This fragment, these maps, and the captain's revelations were pieces of a much larger puzzle, one that would only grow more intricate as Joel's story unfolded.
YouTube channel Nos Confunden.